Pathways to Resilience initiative is really about that. Now what? We know that adversity permeates our communities, our country, but we also know that together we can prevent early adversity. This work is urgent. And so now what? Now what? We can prevent early adversity when we really co-create those solutions. We implement best practices in policy and advocacy and research, all of that together.
The work in New Jersey is about upstream. It's about the solutions where we're talking about how do we prevent. And so part of the conversation here is about how do we engage with those who are never in the conversation. And so there is an expressed and a specific direction that says we are going to engage with those communities who are most difficult to engage with, the people who have never been in the conversation.
Being trauma-informed, in my opinion, is really a strength-based approach. It's looking at the profound and incredible birthright that we have to resilience, that while trauma is prevalent across humanity, resilience is our birthright and our past is not our destiny. And so how do we, through proactive strategies and practices, nurture that innate capacity for resilience?
Being poor and living in poverty are really two different things. That poverty came about through research and became a negative thing. Being poor was not negative until we created the word poverty and attached it with its negative meanings to families. I grew up dirt poor, but I was never ashamed. I always understood that I had exactly what I needed. I was loved. I had parents who cared about all of those things. And it wasn't until we created this word that took on a negative connotation, and all of a sudden we've labeled people as living in poverty.
So part of the work is to identify what practices are traumatizing or re-traumatizing and how do we disrupt them. Another component is then to look at what practices can take place in schools that are preventative and proactive and that increase young people's access to protective factors within the school environment. Looking at things like relationships, integrated social emotional supports, culturally responsive teaching practices.
There's no entity that doesn't have a role to play in keeping kids safe and thriving and supporting families and community where they are, when, where they live, without stigma, before they're in crisis.